Caribbean Newsline is brought to you by the Barbados Tourism Marketing, Inc.
The CCJ to rule on a potentially historic free movement matter, our top story in Caribbean Newsline for Wednesday, October 23rd. From the CMC News Center in Bridgetown, I'm Dawn Paris. Good evening. The Caribbean Court of Justice, CCJ, says it will give an opinion within a reasonable time on a case that could have implications for free movement within the CARICOM Single Market and Economy, CSME. On Wednesday, the CCJ concluded hearing arguments in a case brought before it seeking advice on whether individual CARICOM countries can legally refuse to accept certain categories of workers. This after 2 member states opted out of the agreement that allows the entry of agricultural workers and security guards. We get the details in this report from Newsroom Guyana.
The question of free movement has long been a contentious one in the 15-nation Caribbean community, CARICOM. The heads of government have twice agreed to grant countries an opt-out to say that they will not accept certain categories of workers, the latest being Antigua and St. Kitts, who have opted out of a decision to allow the free movement of agriculture workers and security guards. The 2 countries were granted a 5-year waiver. Now, CARICOM wants to know if its decisions to grant opt-outs is legal under the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, the legal instrument which governs how CARICOM functions. It has asked the Caribbean Court of Justice, the CCJ, to decide. A contentious question that the CCJ has also been asked to decide on is whether the countries which are granted an opt-out automatically deny the citizens of their countries the right to move and work and benefit from the very decisions. In arguments before the CCJ on Tuesday, Dr. Vanessa Moe, the Crown Solicitor at the island's Minister of Legal Affairs, said that Antigua, a less developed state within CARICOM, requested an opt-out because of socio-economic reasons, and she went further in stating that Antigua did not expect to have its nationals who are agri-workers and security guards to have the right, therefore, to travel and work freely in other member states.
A member state who opts out from a decision cannot reasonably expect its national to receive the benefits from another member state in respect of the decision that it had opted out from.
So the official position of Antigua and Bermuda is that they are content for the 5 years not to receive agricultural workers and security guards, nor to have any of their nationals seek employment as agricultural workers and laborers, or have a right to seek that employment in other states.
That's indeed the position, Your Honor.
However, while Antigua seemed to have decided that since it will not accept agriculture workers and security guards, these categories of workers in its own country will not have the right to travel freely and work, other arguments for today strongly disagreed. Grenada argued that while Antigua and St. Kitts have opted out, it did not mean that other states should not accept their agriculture workers and security guards, unless the other states also seek an opt-out.
Jamaica's embattled former Education Minister Rule Reid and President of the Caribbean Maritime University, Professor Fritz Pinnock, have filed a High Court application seeking leave to go to the Judicial Review Court to quash criminal charges brought against them. Earlier this month, Reed, his wife, and their daughter, as well as Pinnock and another co-accused, were charged following a year-long corruption probe into the Education Ministry and the CMU. Reed and Pinnock are contending that the Financial Investigation Division was not empowered by law to bring charges against them and therefore acted illegally. We get the details in this TVJ News report.
In court a few weeks ago, Attorney Hugh Wildman said the case involving Ruel Reed and his co-accused was a gun without a bullet. Now, the attorney who represents one of the co-accused, president of the Caribbean Maritime University, Fritz Pinnock, has another analogy to describe the case.
Well, now that one examines these charges and the law, I would say it is not a big gun without a bullet. It's nothing more than an imitation gun.
On Tuesday, Mr. Wildman filed an application in the Supreme Court for leave of judicial review, seeking to quash the charges brought against Fritz Pinnock and Ruel Reed. Here's why. He questioned whether the Financial Investigation Division, FID, has jurisdiction under the Act.
They are a purely investigative body. They have no jurisdiction to lay charges and to do what they did, and also to have said that they were seeking a fiat from the DPP to prosecute these charges. They have absolutely no jurisdiction to do that. So we are saying that the entire proceedings that they initiated against the applicants, those proceedings are a nullity.
Those claims from the attorney, but the allegations remain. All five accused, including Reed's wife and daughter Sharon and Cheryl, as well as Counselor for Brownstone Division Kim Brown Lawrence, were accused of participating in a scheme which defrauded the state of approximately $56 million.
Both clients are protesting their innocence. So we are not accepting any responsibility for any such missing funds. That's point one. Point two, the state would have to bring the evidence to show that such funds were missing in the first instance, and that these persons have anything to do with missing funds.
If the judicial review was to be granted, it could mean the accused will be freed of charges. The question is whether another body will be able to lay the charges.
We will be taking issue with that, because what you'll be doing here, you'll be putting these people through a process again, which they've already gone through. Although it's a nullity, but we'll be taking issue with that. That that you couldn't bring any fresh charges in the circumstances.
Why not?
Well, we'll be taking issue. There'll be a legal. There's a principle known as abuse of process.
With the high-level corruption case taking yet another twist, there's no doubt Jamaicans will be watching the proceedings closely.
In Trinidad and Tobago, the Oilfield Workers Trade Union, OWTU, is warning the opposition it will pay the political price for trying to block the sale of the former state-owned oil refinery to a company owned by the union. The warning comes on the heels of former United National Congress UNC Senator Wayne Sturge filing an application on behalf of the opposition seeking an injunction to prevent the sale of the Petritrin refinery to Patriotic Energies and Technologies Company Limited, which is wholly owned by the OWTU. The application was filed on Monday and the matter is set to be heard on Thursday. And as we hear in this TV6 News report, OWTU's President General Ansel Roger says while the opposition may feel they can get political advancement out of Petritrin's closure, their latest move will instead seal their fate.
There's a high political price to pay for this, and we are going to ensure that anybody who prevents us from going back to work, they will pay that political price.
OWTU President Ansel Roger says the recent court action by Wayne Sturge is part of a bigger UNC plan to return to government, starting with allegations made in Parliament last week and then this week's injunction application. Roger says the UNC never expected or wanted the OWTU to win the refinery bid and so resorted to hatching plans to spook investors and scuttle the deal.
So they now are going to get an injunction to prevent it from restarting. If they so care about the Petritrin workers and the people in the South, why did they go to the court and get an injunction to prevent it from shutting down?
He says the UNC has always seen the fallout with Petritrin's closure as a gold spoon, a way back into office. But he adds the union will not back down in its fight to acquire the refinery assets and restore jobs and economic growth.
Trickery and treachery and so on. Confuse up everything and then mislead the people to make them believe that, hey, listen, the union didn't do anything. Put us in some boat with the PNM and try to win an election on the basis of that. One set tried to kill us by shutting it down, and one set want to make sure that we're dead now by not starting it back. Yeah, that's how it is.
Roger says their lawyers will be advising them on their next legal step. But in the interim, he says since the UNC has called him out, they will be taking the fight to the streets.
It is Ansel George Roger. That's who you pick a fight with. You pick a fight with me, who wasn't even studying, me even studying you. But you pick a fight with me because it was part of your plot. We should stand up and communicate in a most forceful way and let them know where to get off.
Coming up in Caribbean Newsline, Guyana's president is cancer-free. We'll be right back.
Coming up, a mix of cultures on display in one location. We showcase highlights from CaribFesta. Celebrating 10 years, it's the Food and Rum Festival in Barbados. And we learned about sustainable tourism in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It's all next on Caribbean Passport, right here on this station.
Guyana's President David Granger returned home Tuesday night following his latest medical evaluation in Cuba, where doctors found that he no longer has any trace of cancer. According to a statement from the Guyana Embassy in Cuba, the medical specialist who treated the president expressed complete satisfaction with the state of his health and said the cancer is now in remission. Granger had been diagnosed with a non-Hodgkin lymphoma, a type of blood cancer, last November and began treatment almost immediately in Cuba. He's expected to return to Cuba for another scheduled medical check in January next year and then again in June. Caribbean countries are expected to benefit from a €40 million agreement signed between the European Union and the African, Caribbean and Pacific Group of States and the Food and Agriculture Organization. The 5-year program is intended to boost the development of sustainable fisheries and aquaculture in ACP regions. It is an innovative EU-funded program that will invest in value chains to stimulate inclusive growth, bolster food security, and minimize impacts on the marine environment. The signing of the agreement took place on the sidelines of the Our Ocean 2019 conference on Wednesday. In this week's Newsline Business, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank discusses correspondent banking and de-risking with the IMF, and Guyana prepares for an oil boom. Marie-Claire Williams has the details.
The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank has taken its concerns over de-risking and correspondent banking to the International Monetary Fund. This was among matters raised at the recently held annual meetings of the Board of Governors of the World Bank Group and the IMF. In recent years, international banks have restricted their correspondent banking with the region, fearing de-risking concerns. Governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, Timothy Antoine, says they have been examining some possible solutions.
The fact of the matter is the Caribbean cannot trade with the rest of the world if there are no correspondent banking relations. The situation has stabilized compared to where we were 3 years ago, but it remains fragile. And the discussion this morning about what other opportunities might present themselves for us to strengthen our ability to secure and maintain correspondent banking relations. One idea is the use of technology, unique digital identifiers that can be used by any bank, respondent or correspondent, to be able to track activity in real time in the payment system. And the point about that is, if we use technology well, it can mitigate the fact that we're small, because it doesn't really matter whether you're small or large. It can work for anyone, any part of the world.
The Bank of Guyana says it has been preparing for any challenges that may arise as a result of the anticipated inflow of funds from oil next year. Governor of the Bank of Guyana, Dr. Gobind Ganga, was speaking on the sidelines of meetings of the Board of Governors of the World Bank Group and the IMF.
We have challenges, and those challenges will be addressed. For example, we know that Bank of Guyana has implemented a number of reform measures. Lately, we have had about 4 or 5 new legislation with respect to modernizing our payment system, providing for financial stability through a deposit insurance. We also have emergency liquidity assistance, and even there is an issue to be addressed from the perspective of financial stability. We have also bring into perspective financial crisis management. So there are a number of things that we have put in place to ensure that financial stability continues and the system remains very resilient.
Ganga says they have also been introducing a number of reforms to account for oil inflows.
But the National Reserve Fund is to be operationalized by the Bank of Guyana. In that respect, we have signed up an agreement with RAMP of the World Bank that will provide us with technical assistance to ensure that the institutional mechanism we have in the central bank will be adequate to deal with inflows.
Marie-Claire Williams, Newsline Business.
Ahead in sport, a Trinidadian cyclist creates history in her country and the English-speaking Caribbean. The details after the break. Stay with us.
When you think of what we went through with Hurricane Irma, you had to be able to recognize what are the things we need to do to cope with the aftermath. The psychological trauma, to me, is probably the most telling on a lot of people.
Preparedness is the key. So when people are prepared, when people have their resources in terms of how they can cope with the disaster, they're better able to be able to return to their normal life. They're better able to make decisions that are informed for themselves and for their family, and then for their community. Be ready. Look, listen, and link.
Astronomers have discovered evidence of the first light from some of the first stars among the farthest and oldest physical objects in the universe. Using a simple radio antenna and a great deal of careful measurement, they have effectively seen farther back than even the Hubble Space Telescope. These stars emerged from the smoldering embers of the Big Bang. They lit the sky for the first time, and the early cosmos began to transform from an era of pitch black.
Through the region, across the sea, to the islands also green, we connect you to all the Caribbean. Happy birthday to Lee. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to Lee. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to Lee.
Trinidad and Tobago's cycling queen, Tennille Campbell, has become the first female cyclist from the Twin Island Republic, as well as the English-speaking Caribbean, to qualify for Olympics. She's also the first TNT cyclist to qualify for road cycling since the 1972 Munich Games, breaking a 48-year-old drought on the road. According to the International Cycling Union World Individual and Nation Rankings, Campbell currently meets the required criteria to secure a spot in the women's road race at the Summer Olympics in Tokyo, Japan. She ranks 33 out of 100 riders in the world. Campbell, who has had a 15-month stint at the International Cycling Union camp in Switzerland, qualified as the deadline for qualification closed off on Tuesday, and she's looking forward to her historic participation. TV6's Sergio Dufour reports.
22-year-old loves to compete amongst the best and is looking forward to the new year where her biggest challenge on the world stage awaits.
Yes, I qualified. It's a high achievement. This was one of my main goals, and I'm happy to have hit that target. I don't know how to feel, really. I guess when I arrive to Tokyo, I will have like a stronger feeling and emotions towards that accomplishment.
Now that she's going where no woman in TNT's cycling history has gone before, Campbell is not putting much pressure on herself to perform. However, she wants to win a medal.
I'm not going to put a lot of pressure on myself, but I will try not to put a lot of pressure on myself because I know everyone who knows me knows how I think. And yeah, when my bike is on that line, then we'll see what happens.
For her manager, Desmond Roberts, it's a plan that's been coming to life after he felt competing locally and regionally was not enough for her.
Well, he spoke about it. I spoke about it in 2016 when our goal was to really qualify for the Olympics. Right? And that's where it started. And with one of the discussion, and I had to thank the UCI president when I spoke to him in Martinique, that you're like to get up to the camp up there, because one of the goals is to try to make it to the Olympics.
The coming year promises to be a big one for Campbell. Time will tell if another medal will be added to this shelf.
Meantime, Technical Director of TNT's cycling program, Erin Hartwell, has lauded Campbell's perseverance and ambition.
As a one-woman show, I mean, it's an unprecedented level of performance. I mean, she has broken through whatever glass ceiling, closed door, lack of opportunity that women cyclists have had here in Trinidad. I mean, she's shown that the sky is the limit, that the sky is possible. She needed to be in the top 100. You know, again, 6 months ago, I thought that might be a stretch, again, as one person trying to do it against the rest of the world. So she has come on just at a level that we were just so proud of.
Hartwell said Campbell's feat could open up opportunities for other female road cyclists, but they'll have to look beyond Trinidad and Tobago if they want to be competitive on the world stage.
Well, we're always thinking ahead, you know, and there is a strategy in place. And I think what's going to be most important moving forward is the recognition that from a road perspective, you have to go where the competition is. You have to go to Europe. You have to go to the United States. You can train for a period of time in Trinidad and the Caribbean, but the reality is the level of competition isn't strong enough, it's not high enough to then go be competitive elsewhere. And so I think importantly, we need to get our best athletes out of Trinidad and into some of these international trade teams to the World Cycling Center to further their careers on the road.
To cricket now, West Indies left-hander Jonathan Carter has been named to lead Barbados Pride in the upcoming regional Super 50 tournament. The 14-man squad also includes all-rounder Kyle Mears, who last turned out for his native Barbados 7 years ago. The right-arm seamer and left-handed batsman has spent the last several seasons representing Windward Islands Volcanoes and played a key role in their championship success early last year when he snatched 14 wickets and averaged 34 with the bat. But he played just 3 matches in the last Super 50 later that year when Volcanoes failed to reach the semi-finals. Meantime, 31-year-old left-hander Carter has taken over leadership of the unit in the absence of the West Indies senior players who are set to leave the Caribbean later this month for limited overs series against Afghanistan and India. He is the most experienced player in an otherwise inexperienced squad, having played 117 List A matches, and is just one of 3 players to have represented West Indies. Carter will be joined by off-spinner Ashley Nurse and fast bowler Miguel Cummins, both of whom boast international experience. Bermuda moved closer to elimination from the ICC T20 World Cup qualifier after a fourth successive defeat. Facing Namibia in their fourth match of the qualifying tournament in Dubai on Wednesday, Bermuda lost by 6 wickets. They slumped to 42 for 6 at the halfway stage and then 106 for 9 by the end of their 20 overs. Only 3 batsmen made it into double figures. Okera Bascom was the top scorer with 37, Derek Bragman added 23 not out, and Taryn Frey got 16. In reply, Namibia reached their target with more than 6 overs to spare. They ended the match on 111 for 4 in 13.1 overs. The result leaves Bermuda as the only side in Group A without a single point and in need of a miraculous run of results elsewhere, combined with wins in the remaining 2 matches against Scotland on Thursday and the Netherlands on Saturday if they are to qualify. Rodney Trott, who took over from Dion Stovall as captain, pointed to the batsmen's shortcomings.
Yeah, pretty much. That's been our downfall. I feel like our fielding has been excellent. Our bowling's not been too bad, but our batting, like you said, we're losing too much wickets in the power play early, and then we're losing the wickets and we're not getting as runs. So there's no way. It's hard to win cricket games like that when you're losing wickets in the first 6 and you're not getting runs. You know, and we talk about this every night. You know that we're looking for somebody up the top just to bat at least 8 overs. You know, but like I said, on the day you're playing against opponents, you know, that also want to get your wicket. So it's kind of hard, but like I said, hopefully next game tomorrow we could do much better.
And that's the sport. We'll be right back.
Caribbean Newsline is brought to you by the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc.
I can't believe it. From way up so. When we look at the characteristics of storms that are responsible for death in our region, we experience more fatalities related to storm surge and to major rain and flooding.
This is nobody's life, and I don't want to see next hurricane like this.
My neighbor roof, run! Boy, watch out. Oh, you don't see what we see.
Entertainment is like craft. You know, you can craft a show. There are a lot of, right now, there are a lot of people call artists already entertainers. In other words, like somebody has created, it's like it's not as bad as Believer Dilly, but you know, it's like they have created people.
Right.
And they say, that's an artist. A recording at this artist or that artist. But unless there are some people who have a thing.
Hi, I'm Brittany Dixon, and you're watching Finding Fit, the show I pair up one client with 2 trainers. Trainer number 1.
Oh my gosh.
It's about fitness, comedy.
You know, I can do this all day, you know.
Drama.
In future, we cannot be late.
Inspirational stories, and so much more. You are gonna love it. You can catch Finding Fit prime time this fall on CaribVision.
Again, the major developments of this day, the CCJ to give advice on a case that could have implications for free movement within the CARICOM single market and economy. And in sport, Trinidadian Tennille Campbell becomes the first female cyclist from the Twin Island Republic and the English-speaking Caribbean to qualify for Olympics. And that's Caribbean Newsline. For news and sport around the clock, subscribe to CanadaNews.com. And for more of our programming, log on to CaribVision.tv and check out our YouTube channel as well. We will be back here again tomorrow, but from all of us at CMC News, thank you for watching and have yourselves a good night.